So we continue to the next cluster of the questions that really it's a bit of a mixed bag of different aspects, family, kindness, and others there. So before we leave this topic of marriage, this question is very pertinent for us to understand what is the goal and purpose of getting married or starting a family.
It might differ from person to person, but for me, and I would like to think that it's fine as well, you like that person, and the liking is different from if you like another person as a friend, as a business colleague. It goes deeper than that. It's very personal, and you want to take care of him or her for the rest of your life together. So it's a commitment, a personal commitment. You want to go through thick and thin together. And in terms of starting a family, I would like to propose the purpose of getting married and having children that we expound in our book, Leadership in Parenting. It's about raising children as leaders. You treat them as diamonds in the rough, and with a bit of tweaking here and there, with the correct discipline, effective discipline, you want to raise children who become adults, who are leaders, who are people who become positive agents of change in society, in humanity.
I think, taking from Jamilah's point, one of the success factors of the human civilization is the procreation of and the continuation of the human civilization. I mean, when younger generations and younger children's, they would certainly continue the tradition and the heritage. But when you bring it back to at the individual level, the purpose of marriage is certainly different from people to people, person to person. But it is trying to put you into the holistic picture of sharing your own personal dreams with someone. Can it be done by yourself? It is possible, but there is the natural tendency of human being needing for a companion that can support him or her, companion that he or she can talk to, bounce ideas, reflect. And they have that intimate relationship. It's definitely different, the relationship with your parents and with your friends and others. So this special relationship between men and women has helped them to progress and move forward. I like to also think that the other reason why you want to get married is you don't want to get distracted to things surrounding you. I mean, there's so many things that can pull you from where you are heading, where you are moving. And if you have that someone, that special person who understands you, who gives you the strong encouragement and motivation, I sincerely felt that you can go very far. I mean, if you want to go fast, then go alone. But if you want to go far, then you go in a team then. So in a nutshell, marriage helps you to reach the goal and the purpose of life. So what happened now? When you got married, then you realize that, it's not for me. And you realize that you are happier with being yourself.
Now, this question actually made me remember a short anecdote that I read. I can't really remember where exactly I read it, but I would like to share it here. A man once came to a wise man and told him that I'm no longer in love with my wife. And the wise man said, love her. And the man said, but I don't love her anymore. And the wise man said, love her. And I don't mean love as in the emotion, the feeling, but I'm talking about love as in the verb. Do things that can grow the love. And actually is referring to being kind, being compassionate, doing things out of generosity, being sincere. And this is something that is a good reminder for us all, because sometimes we expect the feeling, the emotion of love to grow by itself. And just because it seems to have worn off, seems to have faded, we say enough is enough. Okay, I'm no longer in love, so I'm leaving, right? So unless it's a matter of, there are cases where, yeah, it's not, you know, the kind thing is just to live, being kind to yourself. In the case of abuse, in the case of pornography, for instance, addiction, pornography addiction, or substance abuse, alcoholism and such, drug addiction, of course, the worst thing is to leave the marriage. But apart from that, a lot of irreconcilable differences. This term irreconcilable differences, I believe those are irritations that actually can be sorted out through kindness, through a better way of resolving conflict, changing our own way of seeing things, perception. And again, just like the anecdote that I've shared with you between the man and the wise man, think of love as a verb, because when you are kind, you're generous, and you treat your other half with love and respect, then it's very likely it will come back to you.
I felt that there is certainly a different emotion when you are a bachelor, and then when you get married, and then you start to make that comparison. A certain level of sacrifice that you have to make. And then depending on the level of tolerance that both parties would have the give and take, then that will be the acid test whether the marriage will stay long or not. Happiness is also a relative subject. Uh, but I would like to enlighten people. For me and Jamilah, after married for more than 37 years, there is that feeling of the need of someone who you could rely and depend. And many studies have been made for those people who have lost their spouse at an early age, or even towards the end of their life. Especially for men, psychologists know very well that they are in need of a companion, and they really have trouble trying to maintain some level of sanity. And for women, you know that women have a very strong emotional connectivity and being able to develop their own circle of friends and building their relationships. So they stand a better chance if they are a widow or if they have a divorcee situation. But let me highlight the point that it may be just a short burst of feeling of unhappiness, but you need to give this marriage a try. It is something that needs to be given time, just like when you plant a tree. It certainly needs lots of watering, lots of removal of pesticide and things which can certainly impact the marriage. So find things which can make the marriage grow healthily and happily. So for someone who is single and decided to adopt kids to form single parent family, is it doable?
Well, I think it's a noble idea, which is worthy for you to explore. But I would say it's a big commitment. You need to be responsible for whatever decisions, the consequences that come with it. It's a package deal, right? So it would be a good idea to, even before you decide whether you should or should not, or whether it would be nice for you to have an adopted child, to connect with people who have successfully adopted children. I Googled actually, and I found this website, www.ibufamily.org. It has a support group, and trying to find support groups that are positive, that are very informative, that can inspire you to move the right way. And also, when you are a single parent, and this is whether you are married or not married, you need to have role models for the child. If you're a male single parent, then you need female role models for the child, and vice versa.
Well, in my view, raising kids requires both the touch of a father as well as the compassion of the mother. So they need to feel the both side um, of the role and the way that they will be raised. Having said that, there have been lots of successful people in history where they are being raised by single parent who provided true love, who gave their best and get sufficient support from their relatives and friends and to compensate any of the shortcoming. This is certainly something that may be true for someone because it is a responsibility to raise another human being. You need to know that level of purpose, and you need to make sure that it is not something that you can just drop along the way. A child is a human being, and it has a lot of their psychology impacting their life. So size of a family, and this is again even a potential conflict, disagreement in terms of how do you agree or to disagree and move forward when it comes to wanting the number of children.
I feel that this kind of conflict needs something. It's not just an objective strategy. You need also a lot of emotions involved, a lot of commitment if you do decide to add one more member of the family. So this is something that we really need time to negotiate. Why is it so important to you? Is it because, I mean, for some women, for instance, I know that if they don't have small children, they just feel like they are lost. And there are also fathers, I've heard, that they really just love little babies in the house, right? So these are the reasons that, they are quite emotional reasons, and you have to think of the future, how this is going to impact your life, whether this is something really worth having a conflict with your spouse, because there are a lot of commitments to go with it. What are the whatever strings that come attached together with a child? It's best that you negotiate and you talk over it and you decide together.
Well, I think this is different from person to person. If you come from a large family, you obviously enjoy having lots of children so that it will emulate you and your siblings within that family. Whereas the other party may come from a single child, so and not used to be having too many children. And furthermore, the thought of managing and juggling and grappling with the day-to-day priorities, especially if both of you are working, can really create some form of tension if it's not being well managed. My suggestion is typically at the early stage of the marriage, and when even before you have any children, have that honest discussion, the dialogue of when it comes to children. For that matter, you can't guarantee you can have a child because there are still couples out there who is childless. That's one point. Having you agreed, then try to understand what is the implication of that decision made. I always advocate that at least you replenish 1 + 1, which means you replenish the husband, and then you replenish 1 child, so that then we still continue to have the number of people. That's where they call the total fertility rate in any nation, which is TFR. Japan and some countries no longer have the equivalent number of population, but that's one perspective. But on your perspective is, it's your continuation of your tradition. The number of children doesn't really going to make it worse or make it better. It's how both of you are able to cooperate well. And there is sacrifice. And in our case, having 2 children, that Jamilah decided then that she wants to focus not only with the family, but she also want to hone in her own career that she can do and perform. So I think different people have different needs. So be mindful, whatever decision you make on the number of children that you are going to have. It has not only have emotional, psychology, but also some financial and social aspect. Kids.
Okay, tough love. Is it still the way? Well, actually, tough love, we always have had tough love down the centuries. It's just that the same phrase manifests or is interpreted differently. Tough love once upon a time is about, being harsh on the child, yelling, punishment, especially physical punishment, where you could even hurt the child really seriously. But now, tough love is being interpreted as saying no to the child when you have to, um, being assertive, being firm. So, yes, it is very much the way to manage kids, no matter which era you're in. It's just that the forms have changed. When you say you need to balance soft love versus soft love and tough love, soft love is when you become much. I love you, darling. You're the best gift I've ever had. That's soft love. But tough love is, for instance, you have got um, a 5-year-old who just doesn't behave, and there are techniques where you can discipline this child to behave in a better way without physical punishment.
I think there is that two dichotomy of the two extreme. Either you are being very tough, and some of you might have seen how your grandparents and parents treated their children, and also there are some who are very soft. So these are the two possible extreme, and both has its own implication on how the child is going to be raised. Knowing children, their stages and ages development, immaturity level, and they do certain things. And to me, sometimes actually they are testing their limits, knowing where you are in this scale. So the idea now is that tough love is being firm, being able to know what is right, and you don't give in, you don't mollycoddle for the sake of just trying to please the child. We are not here for them to vote you as the best mom or dad. We are trying to make the best out of what we have resources wise in order to make them grow and understand. And you can see, just be giving all the love you can without putting them the rights and know the wrongs and defining where they cross the line. It's about raising them as human beings. So you have a little monster at home. So how do we make it?
The language that we use when we refer to children actually have an impact on how we see them. I wouldn't say little monsters, but they may misbehave, and sometimes parents being parents, nobody is perfect. Sometimes you do get upset, but yeah, they can be annoying at times. But the thing to effectively raise children is to arm yourself with effective knowledge, skills, as well as attitudes, especially the knowledge. A lot of problems arise with raising children simply because we learn what might not be effective from our own observations, what our parents have done, or uncles and aunts, which might not suit the needs, the growing up needs for that child. And every child is different. Every child has his or her own temperament, and the same thing might not work if you have 2, 3, 4 children. So it's a matter of tweaking, it's a matter of knowing their ages and stages, what works best with which child, although generally speaking, authoritative, being firm but kind, overall, that would be best.
I think it's just not about child, it's just also knowing their gender, because there is definitely a difference between boy and a girl in terms of how their traits and the behavior. And people have seen Girls tends to be more relationship based, and I know there are certainly some girls who are quite outgoing, but in general they tend to be less uh, active, or rather they're much more at ease. Now, unlike boys, and yeah, number one is to term them as monsters, but you need to understand that their design, their makeup, their DNA consists of these powerful chemicals in their body called testosterone, and it just sort of increase as they grow, and they need to burn, they need to do something, they need to go out there. So for us, especially, we have 5 boys and 1 girl growing up. Fathers, you need to learn how to wrestle in a good manner. You need to bring them outdoor. I took the boys to climb trees, especially some of you are living in apartments and high-rise condos. So give them this opportunity to burn their energy, go out and try and do all the um, seesaw balancing act and the things that they can work out their way physically. So this is how they grew up. So you need to recognize, and instead of suppressing this physical aspect, you might do more harm rather than good, and be more considerate by going out to the outdoor activities, to the fields, to the villages, outskirts of the city, so that there, and have friends. I mean, they play games, computer, but then let them play basketball, let them play football, let them play, and let them really be able to hone in some of their physical skills then.
Self-happiness, okay, versus being responsible to keep the family happy. I would say, yes, there are a lot of responsibilities, what you have to do once you're married, especially once you have children. But you see, self-care is very important, and we have our own needs, and it's difficult to actually keep the family happy when you yourself are not happy. So in terms of balancing what the family needs versus what you need, it's not a matter of 50-50. It's imagine if worst come to the worst, if the family have outgrown you, the kids have all grown up, what are they going to do? So one day that is going to happen, right? If we live long enough, old enough, and the children, they longer need you. So I'm the sort of believe that you need to create your own niche where there's a sense of meaning, fulfillment apart from the family, because that will help you feel more fulfilled. It could be a career, it could be not necessarily a career, it could be something like volunteer work, anything that actually makes you feel fulfilled regardless of how the family functions. So that actually, in a way, it helps you grow as a person, and it can become a source of happiness, meaning, and fulfillment for you.
I felt that it is not a matter of choice, but certainly the prerequisite before a family is happy, you have to be happy as a person. So therefore, just like when you go for the flight, and when the stewardess was saying that if the oxygen drop, first take care of yourself, and then only administer the mask to your dependent. So that shows that you need to have the state of happiness, because your state of happiness, especially if you are the leader of the family or you are the parents of the family, when they look up at you, your level of happiness is paramount, critical, to ensure that the rest of the other family members are equally happy. And by doing so, it has its own knock-on effect. It's just that every action, there is a reaction. So if you're happy, then you're bound to see that they are also happy. But if you're unhappy, and especially children, they can detect your body language, your gestures, and this would be interpreted in a very negative manner. So I really like you to stay positive. Things can come in a negative manner. it's how you handle it that's more important. I always advise my family, and you can worry on things that within your control. Within your outside your control, I think let's just leave to the Almighty and leave to those who are responsible to ensure that it is going to be improved. But for you, then take it with a positive pinch of, take it with a pinch of salt and remain steadfast with your things. And that goes with for those who are also having in-laws.
Well, the thing is, with our own family, we grow up together with them. So we have grown accustomed to their ways of doing things, and we have learned to accept them. And the thing about in-laws is that, you're already an adult. And when you get to know them, it takes a long time, a long, long time to actually learn one person from the next. But if there are things that annoy you, that irritate you, one of the things that can help you deal with this annoyance or irritation is think about someone in your side of the family who has that trait that annoys you. Because to be honest, it's true, all families are different, but within the big family, there is a very good chance that somebody is like this, somebody is like that, somebody is talkative, somebody is chatty, things that you like, things that you don't like. And it's very likely, if you're honest with yourself, you will find someone in your family, might not be a close member of your family, but somewhere there in your family who have that trait that you don't like. And ask yourself, if I can be comfortable with this person, why can't I be with my in-laws? Maybe not totally comfortable, but just accepting them as your in-laws, right? So that makes it kind of tone down a little bit, that irritation.
Well, I think this is all about managing expectation. Whether it's your father-in-law or mother-in-law, they have taken care your spouse from at a very early age. And the fact and the thought that this a stranger came and taking over either their daughter or their only son especially may not considered to be someone who is good enough, perfect enough, because they felt that they would do a better job. But in my view, you must understand that both of you, the husband and wife, knows that you have your own ways of doing things. In-laws are the one who probably provide an insight, advice, and to help you to move forward and move along. This is a relationship that you need to nurture. This is the relationship that it takes time. If you have got a good footing in the beginning, it's all well and done. Otherwise, you may have to do some EBA, emotional bank account, to deposit some of those really in a consistent manner, either buying gifts for them during, remember their important key dates, building good relationship with the uncles or their siblings, knowing what are some of the high points and low points. And you see, to me, in-laws are someone who can become your strong comrades, because whenever you need to convince your other spouse, if they rally behind you, your in-laws, you stand to have a better chance to get things done. So I think in-laws, sometimes they put sense of reality to what we do, but just take it as an advice, and by no way that it should interfere your life and your personal goals and desire. And both of you needs to be at the same page on this matter. My metaphor is that both of you should be in the center, and the in-law from your spouse should be on the other side, extreme end, and your own parents is on the other end, so that then you are in the center instead of them in the center, and you are being divided and wedged by this by these demands of your in-law. As I said to you, start small, don't give up easily. Both of you sometimes has to really plot this whole idea of reliving a good relationship then. I think the last two, what we found in the question is very much about this first family and then second family, which really links to the harmonious, or rather trying to then balance this concept of polygamy. I think, well, number one, a disclaimer that we have no experience on polygamy, and I don't think it's fair for us to give some, a comment on this subject. But suffice to say, when you make that decision, there is a very clear criteria and the implication that you have to be mindful. It's the issue of you have to be fair and just to all the parties. And that is something that you can only respond, because knowing that you're going to have more than one person in your life that you share, and then having the subsequent effect of extra children, you knew very well that you've got to divide it in the most fairest manner. It is not just about time. It is not about money. It's the consequence of making that decision that really going to impact the well-being of that relationship. So, I mean, you should know upfront when anyone, especially the men, making this decision, what are some of the issues that will arise. You may have more than one mother-in-law to handle, let alone extra number of children, and therefore, I sincerely believe, think through, and hopefully you will get the answer. I think with that, we have finished all the 4 clusters. Before we end the session, we just wanted to highlight that during this period, and I think we have been offering some of our both marriage and parenting books. The marriage books is about the kindness miracle, or the Malay version, Ajaibnya Kebaikan. It's a good gift for those people who want to get married, and allows them to read and contemplate. I know there are some brides who, to be bride, then asking the to be groom to make sure they read before the vow. And then for those of you who are wanting to have children, and then beginning your early stage of parenthood, then the Ibu Cool Bapa Hebat, or the Cool Mom Super Dad, is something that we have shared. Jamilah first maiden book. And also then we felt that there is a lot of feedback from the other parents who felt a challenge to reach out to boys. So that's where the book called Cool Boys Super Son, it provides lots of tips. It also have some similar treatment to girls for that matter. The Groovy Guide for Gen Y and Z, it's about dealing with this new generation of breathing the internet as their new oxygen, so they can't live without it. So you need to be able to connect with them. There are 123 ideas that you could do as an alternative to engage with them, to connect with them, and to ensure that you can sustain the relation with them. So our latest book is Leadership in Parenting. It's to denote the purposeful of parenting. So with that, those are the discounted rates, and you feel free to connect with us through our various communication. And also from time to time, there will be articles that relates to the latest issues with parenting. Reach us out through the email, or even if you need some form of advice. I hope this whole entire session have provided an insight to you on how to deal with marriage, deal with family, and then use kindness as a tool for you to build relationship and bridges to those that you love. Then, Jamilah, any of your
Thank you for watching.
yeah, thank you for watching, and we hope that these tips and insight will help you in your own way to move on and develop that happy relationship and realize truly that you live happily ever after. Thank you very
Bye.
much and all the best.